once that task of work is automated, what's left behind is the quality of your interactions, your relationships, how clear you're communicating. Welcome to The Fearless Foodie, the podcast that gets honest about what it really takes to thrive in food and retail. I'm Amy Wilkinson, coach, speaker and trusted partner to food industry teams with lived experience of the pace, pressure and politics that come with the job. Fearless Foodies cut through the fluff and get straight to what actually helps, and that's exactly what we're here to do. Let's dive in. Hello and welcome to this week's episode of The Fearless Foodie. We're going to talk about AI today, and I bet you're like rolling your eyes thinking, oh, flippin' heck, because the conversation is everywhere and it is moving so fast that it's very hard to keep up. And I'm recording this at the back end of March, and I know the episode's not going to go out till May, and things are probably going to have changed again by then. But I'm not just going to be talking about the hype and how you could be using AI. What I'm going to talk about is how it is going to reveal a bit of a skills gap that's been quietly sitting inside your team or teams within the food industry for years, that's about to become very, very visible. Because yes, people are worrying about their job security, people are excited about the productivity, all of that stuff. But food businesses are already deeply technical. We have technical, we've got food scientists, we've got people doing supply chain, all the numbers, all the insight, all the data, serious expertise that exists. So the question is, if AI starts doing more of the technical work, what's actually left that differentiates people? So I'm going to talk to you about things that AI can't actually do. I think things that will define the next generation of food leaders. And I'm going to talk to you about the shifts that will determine whether your team thrives or gets left behind by the AI revolution. I feel like this is an episode that might not age well. We might be listening back to it in a year's time going, oh, Amy, you were wrong, because it is moving so fast. You know that AI is changing things. I'm not here to convince you of that. You know that already. What I want you to understand is why this particular change is hitting food teams differently. Because you will know, if you worked in food manufacturing or retail for any length of time, the hardest parts of the job are rarely the technical bits. They're not the how to work out a recipe or, how to come up with a new idea. The problems are the human problems. They are convincing ops to trial something new. They are influencing your buyer to listen to you. It's about aligning people that are in commercial and technical. And it's about things like pushing back on those unrealistic timelines. And you will also know that the reality is that a lot of the time people in this industry get promoted because they're brilliant at the technical work. And then they're suddenly expected just to be able to lead, to influence, to communicate at a senior level, and they get zero training for it. And the reality is the gap's always been there. And AI just means those human moments are going to be arriving faster and more frequently. And there's not going to be as much buffer, because the reality is that AI compresses timelines. A task that now took a week or so to do might just take an hour. Which means the conversations, the decisions, the moments where being a human and human judgment matter, they're all coming at you a lot quicker. And we know the pressure's already relentless. That's not new. What's new is that there's nowhere to hide behind that technical work, behind that's going to take me X amount of time to do. So this isn't a new problem that we have got, but it's becoming a more urgent problem as AI starts to strip back those layers. And I wanted to talk about some examples of how important the human lens is on things. So I've got an example that's from a few years ago now, and so it's pre-AI, but it's one of those things where data was looked at and everybody was like, oh yeah, the data says. And it's Tesco Fresh and Easy, when they opened Fresh and Easy in the US. So on paper, it looked incredibly strong, and they invested a lot of money. They had lots of data. They carefully designed the formats, but it didn't land. And it was partly because there wasn't enough knowledge on the ground, enough understanding, human understanding of the differences in the US market. the question when people analyse that now isn't that it was just wrong strategically. It was, did anyone in the room feel able to say, I'm not sure that quite works, or these are the reasons it couldn't work. There's lots of, you will have been in a situation where you can see a problem, but you might not have been confident enough to say, I don't think this is going to work. And as we are getting more and more AI data saying this, that and the other and telling you what you want to hear, it's really important to have people that are willing to challenge that. Saying it out loud often requires confidence. It requires that ability to influence. And it also requires an environment where it's okay to challenge, where it feels safe to constructively challenge. So things like AI would be able to analyse that consumer data, but it can't walk into a room and challenge the assumptions, and it can't replace that critical lens. And in the food industry, the cost of unchallenged assumptions is enormous because it could make a massive difference commercially, operationally, but also in terms of food safety. So it may not take everything into consideration. And the risk is that, AI, particularly I think ChatGPT, can do a lot of blowing smoke up your backside, telling you you're doing a brilliant job, or it can make things that are quite average look brilliant. So it produces these confident, polished, well-structured outputs, regardless of whether the thinking that's gone in behind it is actually any good. And we know that AI hallucinates, so it makes stuff up. And they're getting better at that, but it still exists. So that could look like in food, a beautifully formatted brief, but it still misses that there's a key allergen risk. Somebody could be saying confidently the market could grow at X rate because they're building it on the wrong assumptions. They haven't put that human lens over it. And something that looks professional can still create loads of ambiguity. So the ability to be able to interrogate the outputs of AI, not just to generate loads of stuff, is more critical than it ever has been. And I do have a concern as I see people coming through the ranks that have, gone through university with AI. They can't necessarily think independently, and they don't necessarily know how to constructively challenge because they are just asking AI every single question. And the risk is in a business where you are actively being encouraged not to challenge it in the first place, there is a risk that things will get overlooked from an ethical perspective, from a safety perspective. So really, if you're listening to this, the question isn't whether you can use AI, because we will all learn how to use it. It's whether you and your team have the confidence and the skills to know when something is off, when it doesn't, the outputs aren't quite right. And then the confidence and skills to challenge that and say out loud, are we sure? Is that right? And the other thing is, as we rely more and more on AI, the human element is going to be the bit that works to your advantage. So one of the most famous food success stories is always the Dragon's Den ones, like Levi Roots and the Reggae sauce. If you think about things like Dragon's Den, they're always looking for the standout in that pitch is, the numbers need to be right, but usually it's the story, it's the human connection, it's the emotional connection. He made the dragons believe in the product, and that moment turned it into what is a multi-million pound brand today, because humans buy into ideas through stories, through human connection and belief and emotion, and it's not just about data. So AI can build you a brilliant slide deck, but it can't create that connection. And in the food industry, where we're selling ideas internally as much as we are externally, that connection really, really matters. But there's kind of two really light examples. So, it probably didn't feel that light for Tesco's having to pull out of the US, but, it was a while ago, so it maybe doesn't feel so raw. But, one where there was an over-reliance on what it looks like on paper and not necessarily the human lens, and one where that human emotion was part of the sell. But I actually think the biggest risk that is going to resonate with people listening on some level, is something that doesn't get said enough, and that is that AI is going to make poor leadership very obvious very quickly. Because if AI handles more of those task-based things, managers kind of lose the thing that they've been hiding behind, that kind of, I'm too busy being too busy. I don't have time for that conversation right now. We're too stretched. We don't have time to invest in people. Those excuses are starting to run out, because what's left once that task of work is automated, what's left behind is the quality of your interactions, your relationships, how clear you're communicating, and how you model behaviours under pressure. Let's just pause for a moment, because I want to share something with you that might be quite useful. Ever chase a test result at 5:59 p.m. on a Friday? Yeah, we've been there too. That's why we're proud to be partnered with IFP Labs, a lab network that actually gets what it's like to work in food. They support businesses across Europe with accredited testing for food, feed, swabs, water and more. And they do it with a quick turnaround, expert insight and genuinely reliable service. IFP Labs is a laboratory network made up of companies who we know and trust because they're already supporting the people behind the products you love. Check them out at ifp-labs.com and breathe a little easier next time you've got a product launch riding on that test report. This is something for anyone managing people early in their careers in the food industry. Many of them come straight from really structured environments, so school, college, uni, where things are fairly clear and guided. And then we land them in this fast-moving workplace where they're suddenly working with commercial teams, suppliers, customers, senior stakeholders, and they're expected just to figure it out. Things like prioritising their workload, communicating confidently, or pushing back when something isn't realistic. And for years, we just assume that people have picked this stuff up by osmosis. But the reality is, in the modern workplace, that's much harder than it used to be. That's why we created Fearless Foundations. It's a practical development programme that helps people early in their careers to build their confidence, start prioritising effectively, and work well across different functions. Because if we're asking a lot from people early in their careers, it makes sense to give them the right support, which is better for them and it's better for retention and succession in the business. If you lead a team and this sounds useful, you'll find the details on the Fearless Foodies website. And if you're listening thinking this would really help me or somebody else in my team, feel free to point your manager in my direction. Right, let's get back to the episode. So those managers who've been coasting and been able to use their technical competence as a way to create smoke and mirrors, they're going to get exposed because AI is about to make it very clear that they are not stepping up, or that the pressure that they are saying there isn't what's creating performance. What is going on around them is what creates performance, the environment that people are in. But it's an opportunity as well. I think there's a real risk to those that are going to get a bit more exposed. But I think the opportunity is there for leaders who are going to invest in the human skills, so the communication, the influencing, the trust building. They're going to be the people that stand out. And I love it because it works to my advantage for sure, because this is all of the stuff that we teach within Fearless Foodies. And something I'm seeing more and more of that really kind of worries me a little bit is how people are using AI to generate presentations and stuff like that incredibly quickly. Oh my God, it's amazing as a tool because it gives you something that looks really professional, really polished, really structured. But then the person stands up and is presenting them and they don't have the presentation skills, and more critically, they can't answer the questions that are being asked in the room because they haven't done the thinking. AI created the deck. It didn't build the thinking, it didn't build the confidence or the credibility behind the message. And I know if I'm running a training course, part of the process is me building that deck. If I get AI to do all of that, I haven't necessarily thought through every single question that might be asked or every single scenario in the same way as if I build it myself. And the reality is that means that gap's going to become very obvious very quickly. Because remember that AI can generate the information, but it can't build an individual's authority in the room. It can't build your authority. That comes from you. So it's not just about getting AI to generate something really quickly and then scanning it before you go in. You've really got to keep your brain whirring and the critical thinking going. But across everything we've covered, it's the same pattern. Like, the difference isn't the technology. That is coming, that is moving really fast. It's the human capability that surrounds that. And people, when AI first became mainstream, were talking about, AI is not going to take your job, but somebody that uses AI is going to take your job. And I actually think that the people who will thrive aren't necessarily the ones that use AI the best, or just the ones that use AI the best. They're the ones who know when not to use it and have the confidence to back their own judgment, the human skills, the gut reactions, the skills to be able to challenge constructively and also remain credible and use that credibility to bring others along with them on the journey. That's not the sort of thing that AI can shortcut. It's something that you have to build yourself. So if you're listening to this as an individual working in food, your technical expertise is always going to matter. But the leaders who combine that technical expertise and knowledge with genuine human capability are the ones who will define what this industry looks like next. So I'm going to talk to you about the critical skills that I think you and your teams need right now as AI is taking over the world. The first one is being able to influence even when you are not the authority in the room. So food businesses are really, really flipping complex, even the small ones. You're constantly having to influence cross-functionally. So ops, technical, commercial, suppliers, retailers, everybody is having to get other people on the bus. And I meet so many brilliant people in the industry who know their subject matter inside out, but nobody's actually ever taught them how to influence in the room. And the reality right now is that being technically right is not going to be enough. You need to bring people on the bus with you. And as AI takes over more of all that techie analysis and all of that stuff, the ability to move ideas forward through those relationships and communication are going to become the differentiator. So the first one for me really is thinking about how honed are your influencing skills? Can you get people on that bus with you? The next one for me is being able to communicate well when you are in a pressurized environment, because AI can generate lots of information. It can highlight that there's a risk, there's a problem, but we're still needing to translate that in a way that is easy for other people to understand. It's very good at word vomiting a lot of stuff at the moment, but we need to be able to be clear in our recommendations. We need to be able to answer those tough questions, and we need to be able to persuade stakeholders, particularly in those moments of pressure. What I'm seeing increasingly is there's a bit of a confidence gap. People that are genuinely brilliant at their jobs, but who struggle to hold the room or struggle to articulate their thinking on the spot because I've done other episodes talking about this, but they go into fight or flight mode. Somebody senior's in the room and they don't know how to get their point across because their mind goes blank. Being able to be confident and clear in your communication in those moments of pressure is going to be the career defining part for you as a human in the AI world. It's not presenting skills. This isn't about presentation skills in the death by PowerPoint sense, because AI is going to be able to make that all look great. It's about the real clear human communication, the sort of stuff that builds trust and gets people to move their decisions forward. And the other thing is going to be this constructive challenge and the critical thinking, because I think it's so important that people are able to say, I think we might be missing something here, or like stating the obvious, because when everybody's relying on an AI bot, they're like, oh yeah, well, it must be true because AI said it. And the reality is it's not easy to do that in a busy, high-pressured food manufacturing or retail environment. It needs you to be confident in yourself, in your own judgment, and it needs to be in an environment that is actually safe to challenge. But it's critical because for innovation, for risk management, and to be the kind of culture that you want to work in, it needs to be the sort of place where AI outputs are interrogated rather than just accepted as they are. The organisations that are going to use AI well are the ones that have already built that psychological safety, that ability to challenge, allowing people to ask the hard questions. And if they don't have that at the moment, that's a real core human skill that needs to be built so that we're not just blindly taking what AI says for granted. And all of this stuff, it's not new. It's all stuff that we've needed all along and we haven't had a lot of the time. A lot of the businesses I've worked in or with have brilliant structures in place, systems, technical knowledge, but they don't have these skills. And the human capability is what is going to stand us apart from our competitors now. And that's why so much of the work that we do at Fearless Foodies has always focused on developing these human capabilities, because we have great technical expertise in the industry, but what often holds brilliant people back isn't a lack of knowledge, it's the ability to influence across teams, communicate with confidence, and to challenge constructively. And that's why we created the programme Fearless Influencers, which is specifically for people in food who are brilliant at what they do, but they want to get better at moving ideas forward inside really complex organisations. So if that's something that you or your team could really do with, we'll put a link in the show notes for you to have a little bit more of a look at that. So I hope you found that useful. I feel like I went on a little bit of a rant, but I think for me, I really want people to think about how AI will change the way work happens in the food industry. But remembering that the competitive advantage won't always be who comes up with the best use of those AI tools or, the best version of them. It's likely to come from the teams who combine that technical expertise, the AI tools, and genuine human capabilities. The skills gap of the human people skills that are needed isn't new. It's been there all along, but it's now getting a lot more urgent because AI is accelerating those timelines. It's exposing the weak leaders out there, and it's polishing a turd. It's making polished output available to everybody, which means the differentiator does need to be your judgment, your human skills, and your ability to build trust. The people who are going to define this next chapter of this industry are the ones that keep developing those skills now, not because AI is a threat, but because the opportunity is significant for anyone willing to build on their own capabilities whilst using AI. So I hope you found it useful. Come and let me know on LinkedIn. Send me a message. I always love to hear from you. Human connection is so important to me. And don't do what someone did the other day and clearly use an AI bot to comment on my podcast post. It actually said the words, create a response to this post. I was like, oh my goodness. Like, that is the stuff that we are going to be seeing through. We want human connection. We want to use these tools. I flipping love AI. It makes my life easier, but the human skills that have always been needed are going to be needed more than ever now. So come and tell me what you think and get in touch if you want some more help for you or your team to upskill in this area. And I will see you next time. That's a wrap on this episode of The Fearless Foodie. If it hit home, subscribe, leave a review and share it with someone who's ready for less fluff and more real talk. And if you're ready to build a bolder, braver, more brilliant team, come find me at fearlessfoodies.co.uk. Until next time, be bold, be brave, be fearless.